can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Weisz.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Andrew Street of Dealer OMG.com. And Andrew, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. We are talking about Neil Mayer, Mike Edge, and David Christopher at Tread Partners. They serve tire shops, right? And we're going to talk about niching because Andrew is really niched down to dealerships, so we're going to go deep on that. But they have a great podcast over there, Neil and Mike and David. So check them out. Tread Partners, Gain Traction podcast. Also, a great guest, since this is part of the Top Agency series, Todd Taskey. Todd Taskey has a Second Bite podcast, and Todd helps pair agencies with private equity. And we talk about valuation and everything around what he's found in the agency industry. But he's found that some agencies made more on the second bite than they did on the first. So they sold, then the private equity sold again, and some of these agency owners made more on the second bite. So his Second Bite podcast is amazing. I think I've listened to every episode at this point as well. So check all those out on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. How do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution and production so that it makes it easy for them. You know, we call ourselves, Andrew, kind of the magic elves that work in the background to make sure everything happens. So the host could sit back, relax, build the relationship, and run their business. So, you know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. I found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you have questions, go to rise25.com. And we've been doing it for over a decade. So feel free if you have anything podcast related. I'm excited to introduce Andrew Street. He's CEO of Dealer OMG. He bootstrapped it from an idea to an Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company in the US. And his digital marketing firm is best known for lead generation and digital advertising innovation for car dealerships. And he actually started out working as a local business consultant for Facebook, and he witnessed their ad platform rollout and got a front row education on how to unlock its power. Now he does that for dealerships. So Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, I'm honored to be here. And that was a really impressive introduction with the elevator pitch for you and the sponsors and all in one take. You nailed it, man. I'm happy to be here.
Even if I mess it up, I still keep it in. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's a one take regardless.
It's human.
But talk about Dealer OMG and what you do. I mentioned briefly, but tell us a little bit more.
We were formed by my business partner and myself, branched out from Facebook and started working in e-commerce, was a big focus of mine, just because I really liked outdoor apparel. That was Mountain Hardwear and North Face, Columbia, Arc'teryx, and all these cool outdoor sporty kind of gears that I like to see myself in. And we were doing kind of complicated co-op programs between the manufacturers and retailers, helping the manufacturers sell through the retailers. And what we found, it was a lot of labor, and there was constantly reinventing things, coming up with creative campaigns that were giveaways and things like that. And we picked up one car dealership in town. And it was a Toyota dealership that I didn't have a lot of understanding of how they worked, but a lot of the same approaches that we were doing with e-commerce were working really well with their car dealership. And over the course of a year, we were under a different name at the time. We're called 4Kicks Marketing. We watched their sales go from 200 cars a month to about 1,000 cars a month. And it was new management and it was new inventory and whatever they were doing, they were getting a ton of success. But a lot of what they were doing, they were pointing the finger at us. and they grew their spend tenfold over the course of that year. And so it started catching my attention, like, okay, let's start figuring out more about these dealerships. And they introduced us to another dealership where we started doing the same processes with Facebook and Instagram, or just Facebook advertising at the time, and saw them grow from 200 to 700 cars a month. It's like, okay, so I ended up on a plane going to a dealership conference and sat down next to somebody that worked at the dealership who's in their marketing department. And I just bought him a Bloody Mary or two and asked them all the questions about how does a dealership work? People are talking about fixed ops department. What is that exactly? And you guys can sell new cars, but lose money. You lose $200 per car on average. How do you guys stay in business? And just ask them all the stupid questions of
that doesn't seem like a stupid question to me.
At the beginning, it was working with SCORE and working with consultants and coaches along the way. Like, I feel like we've had a lot of resources that we'd use what limited budgets we had to hire consultants, coaches based on what we need, whether it was operational or positioning. And then we hired Jason Swink, who you might have come across for a little while. Shout out to Jason Swink. But he gave us a little bit of advice that went a long way. And one thing was just like quickly to pick a niche and be the big fish in a smaller pond instead of a small fish in a gigantic pond of we do digital advertising too. And it put us in a position where I put together a chart where we looked at the current accounts that we were working with. And it was elective medical, so plastic surgery, skincare, stuff like that. It was multi-location retail, or it was car dealerships. Because we had all three and we had a pretty good recipe for each one, kind of stemming out of a background with e-commerce. And so I made a chart that was upsell opportunities, network, value that we're able to drive for that industry, networking opportunities for conferences, way to establish authority through publications, things like that. An automotive one. And I kind of like cars, and I've gotten way more into cars since we started doing this. And we were working with one Toyota dealership at the time, which was Mon Toyota. And they went from like 250 cars sold a month to about 1,000 over the course of a year and a half. And they began pointing the finger at us as like a big reason for their success. So another Chevrolet store called Capital Chevrolet in Austin, where we live, picked us up, and they went from 300 to 600 cars a month in sales. So we were looking really good, and they were spending a lot more money. It was much more consistent than some of the e-commerce and the retail things that we were doing. And so I got on an airplane and flew out to an industry event called Digital Dealer. I didn't know it existed, but I bought a ticket for like $1,500 or something and flew out there with one of my dealers, with the marketing director of a dealership. And he was sitting next to me. His name's Dale Duke. I bought Dale some Bloody Marys. I'm like, look, I just want to ask you questions. And I had a moleskin notebook, and I just went through like, okay, you guys sell cars and you lose money per car you sell. How are you still in business? How do you cover payroll? Okay, the manufacturer gives you kickbacks for selling a certain volume, and you get them with finance. You get them with fixed ops. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. What exactly is fixed ops? Okay, it's services and it's parts and it's everything that's not selling cars. What CRM do you use? What language does that speak? What resonates? Like, what does your boss look at you? How do they gauge your success as the marketing director? I mean, who manages the general manager, and who was the GSM, the general sales manager? What kind of discretion do they have, and how is their performance measured? In a sense, to be able to speak their language, and then to be able to translate between digital advertising into English, and then from English into automotive, and back and forth. And it's, in time, it's put us in a great position to become a much bigger fish in that smaller pond and speak to paid social advertising for car dealerships. And so it's helped us with, it's helped me personally just with going out to dinners where it's not like, oh, you say you own a chiropractic clinic. Okay, how's that doing? Okay, it could be better. But instead, it's like if you're not looking to grow your sales, services, or trades for your dealership through Facebook and Instagram, then we can just talk about business a little bit, but we can just be friends.
Andrew, what's interesting is a beginner's mindset. And some of the best direct response marketers, copywriters on the planet, I feel like, have this beginner's mindset where there's no dumb question. They just want to really keep digging deeper to find out more. At that time, did you have a set questions that you want to go through? How did you know what to ask just to dig deeper? Because, even people I've found, they've been in the industry for 20 years and they're writing copy or they're doing ads. They kind of still come at it from a beginner's mindset. Like, let's assume I don't know everything, and it allows them to learn more and dig deeper. So when you were having that conversation, did you have set questions, or now today, do you have set questions that you go through just to understand really the deep needs and the client itself?
Yeah. I mean, that's a big question. Yeah, that's a great question. For that specific conversation, it was just sort of a few questions to get me prompted, and then all of a sudden it just spiraled into a lot more questions about how dealerships actually operate and make money and manage lead volume and things like that I wasn't really considering asking. And the industry that we're serving with auto, there's a big tendency for vendors and advertisers to really want to package things up and make it really shiny and sell products that already exist as a different product, not necessarily white labeling it, but spinning it and adding a lot more, just making it murky on what they're actually selling, but it's really shiny on the outside. But on the inside, it's just carousel ads on Facebook that drive really cheap traffic to landing pages. But on the outside, it's, a proprietary machine with database, AI, machine learning. And so, and we've had salespeople on our staff before who've wanted to package us and sell us that way. And it sort of works to get in the door, but then it's a little misconception on what we actually do. That's much bigger than this one little component. And so the questions now that are prompting really good relationships and long-term customers, we're not looking at customers for months like a lot of the automotive industry with vendors. It's over years that we've been with a lot of dealers. And it is going through questions about their new car sales, their used car sales, their used car acquisition. How do they get their used cars? How do they price them? Going into their operations of, do they have an internal call center, which they call a BDC, like a business development center? Their service department, do they have a lot of open bays? Can they take more services? Are they having trouble with retention? And then, are there things that we can do to help with recruiting? To where by the end of a 5-minute conversation, we can be really clear on the things that we can do from our desk to help with their dealership. And then we kick them off quickly. And then it's out of sales hands and into account management, which we call dealer consultants, for them to be able to continually ensure that what we're doing from our desks is aligned with what that dealership needs. If used cars are just flying off the shelf and they're making a ton of money, let's move out of trying to sell used cars and move more into used car acquisition and go after people driving specific vehicles and call them out by their vehicle and say, we're paying a premium this month for those types of vehicles. Come in for the 5-minute appraisal and keep the white glove service on while we still have the advertising machine behind it.
Yeah, it seems like you just have that deeper relationship and deeper understanding of the client, especially, when you go into a specific niche. So that's a big decision, right? To go, okay, we're going to not work in all these other, with these other businesses, right? We're going to focus on dealers. And then second, can we talk about the evolution of the services that you offer? You just mentioned right now, if someone's watching the video, we could see we're on dealeromg.com. And, right now you can see the solutions page, right? There's sales, there's fixed ops, acquisition, branding, recruiting. Talk about the evolution. What did you start off with when you started working with dealers? And then what did you expand according to, as you got to know them and probably you built your team?
Yeah, it continually changes. And it changes based on what type of technology is available, the capabilities that we're building out in-house, because we've got developers building out our own internal software. And then also what, with the needs of the dealership as chip shortages and global viruses and everything that's happening, that's kind of dictated what a dealership needs, if anything. And I like to think that we're still small and nimble enough to where we're going to be one of the last things that they would ever cancel, because through the iteration of what was possible. So dealerships love leads. They want really good leads, but they're leads. And Facebook, maybe 2015, 16, somewhere in there, came out with lead forms. And you tap on an ad, and it brings up a pre-populated form with all of your contact information. First name, last name, cell phone, personal email address. And I was like, okay, we can generate leads. Dealers can take leads. We can route them directly into their CRM. This is the holy grail. Let's unlock this. And so every single customer we had, we were going aggressive with lead forms. And then what you find is it's too easy to fill out that lead form. And it would be a lot of people who aren't intentionally filling it out, or people who couldn't qualify for getting this type of car. And it would just fill the dealership up with bad leads, which they could convert at maybe 2% at the beginning from just like this high volume of leads to sales. But nobody's equipped to really handle that many bad leads to trying to set appointments. So we quickly had to scrape back and be like, okay, we're going to reserve those types of ads that are asking for people's contact information for people who already know about the dealership. How do we do that? Okay, they've come by the website. They've looked at a particular vehicle on the website. Now we get back in front of them with that vehicle and similar vehicles. Now let's ask them to start the conversation because they haven't filled out a form on the website. And so it's a lot of trial and error and A/B testing. And then if, like I had mentioned, and right after everything went into a lockdown during COVID, they were so many dealers, and I'm in Texas, and it was we were pretty capable of selling cars, buying cars, servicing cars. But a lot of the country was limited to, people, delivering cars. They were still essential, so they could do services, and figuring out what that state allowed, and then just taking all of our budgets or reducing our budgets and doing that. At the same time, we were applying for loans and or grants from Facebook for car dealers and everything that we could possibly do from our desks to help. And we don't do graphic design or website updates, but we were doing it and we were offering it. And it's like, okay, this is a unique situation. Let's do whatever we can to help. But then, when you're asking about getting outside of just car sales and services, it's as we've developed technology to be able to harvest their data and to ingest their CRM data, ingest DMV records, to be really prescriptive with who we're targeting. So if somebody is within a 10-mile radius of our dealership, they live in that radius, and they drive a RAV4, but they didn't buy it from us, and we're a Toyota dealership, I want them to come into our dealership for services or for trade-in opportunities or for getting my vehicle appraised, or for a warranty issue, or there's a number of things that we could trigger to try to conquest people off the streets. And the same token, since we're targeting people in their CRM, it's if you've purchased from us, but you're not doing routine services and you live in the city, let's give you service opportunities. Or let's simply just, as soon as you purchase, let's have a message that says thank you for 30 days, for 90 days. That just says thank you. And we're a big part of the community. Everybody that works here is part of the community. This is how we grow, by referrals from your neighbors and your family. So it's coming up with a lot of different solutions using the same platform, where it's common for advertisers just to look at it as a one-trick machine that drives, cheap website traffic or cheap leads.
I want to talk, you mentioned software, and I'd love to talk about software development as an agency, right? Because you can build it, or you can just use another software. So I'm wondering your thought process on the type of software and why build it as opposed to use something else, I guess, off the shelf.
Yeah, I feel like there's a common thing that agency owners get to once they hit, I don't know, like a $1.5–2 million in EBITDA, that they want to start investing back into the company, and either they can't find the right places to put it, or else they think that, that, hey, we've got an idea. Let's put some time behind this. Totally different skill set than, so my background is design and marketing and sales. Then to switch into overseeing product development, it came with, the crux was common, where we built out a platform that ingests the inventory and CRM information, and then we scrapped it and started over with a different developer. And we got a platform manager, a project manager, like people on staff who know product, which I thought we could figure out quickly, but I was wrong, and we couldn't give it the amount of attention that it needed. So we got nearshore developers in the US, because when we were looking at licensing other people's platforms, it was prohibitively expensive. It would have made more sense if we were an ad agency who used every single platform, from media buying to OTT and display networks and paid search and paid social, so we could, be a much bigger part of the pie for a dealership's advertising budget. But we were a sliver. We were this assassin that comes in and maintains that business and keeps that business, and is, the best in class, not the cheapest, but the best for this one category. And so a lot of the softwares were really expensive, and we found it irreplaceably valuable for us to be able to pull in our customers' information, their data, their website visitors, their past customers, their current customers, the customers that start to fill out their lead forms that abandon them, and then pull in data from consumer warehouses like Polk and Experian and TransUnion, to be able to identify people. So instead of us targeting the 6 million people in Houston that are on social media every day around the dealership and just carpet bombing everybody, we could be much more prescriptive to people who have maybe a low net wealth, low household income, credit score challenges, don't have a great credit score, things that could help identify them as somebody who we could help get the right appropriate ad and the right appropriate vehicle, to helping people qualify. Instead of the message being, here's this $90,000 Silverado, it's, here's a vehicle that we can get you qualified for, low down payment, low monthly payment. And so with the platform that we built, it's called vinAMP, it gives us an opportunity to make much faster advertising decisions and be much more prescriptive with who we're targeting and what we're saying to them.
When you created this, started creating it, Obviously you're scratching your own itch, right? Was there a thought of, yeah, we're going to use it internally, we're going to be more efficient, we're going to be better for our clients? Was there a thought of releasing it as an external product as well?
There is. I mean, yeah, there has been some interest in being client facing and having it be more of a SaaS, which I'm not interested in doing right now. That could be a play in the next couple of years, but that's a different company. I want to do, if we're going to do it, it's going to be done right, where we have people whose job is to onboard that customer and to ensure that they're using it, that they're getting value out of it, that they're upfront when we first start doing it. Like we used to use Infusionsoft, who did a really good job of onboarding us and had a coach that we had to pay for that would meet us twice a week and require us to go through and do different things and launch different campaigns on that. Because right now, I mean, we're dealing with dealerships who don't have an internal marketing team that's really has the bandwidth. They have capable people for sure, but they don't have the bandwidth to take all these different audiences and be like, okay, here's what the dealership needs. We need to do better retention with our service department, from sales, people purchasing, to people coming back and doing services. And we want to go from 25% retention to 40%. Here's all the people who purchase who aren't doing services. Here's all these DMV records of people who drive our cars. Now what? So we're set up to do all of that, deploy it, and show the dealer that we're doing it. But when and if they get those capabilities, or it could be other ad agencies to start doing it with, but I'm not focused on that right now. I just want our team to use the hell out of it. And then we can talk about that once we're further down the road.
Yeah. No, it seems, focusing on what you're doing, because it's like you said, it's a whole separate business. I'd love to hear, because a lot of agencies specifically have ideas and ways that they could probably make their workflow better, easier for their team. I'd love to hear some of the challenges and pitfalls while you were going through this process of creating the kind of the software, internal software. I mean, if you look at some big companies out there, it kind of was birthed out of an agency. I think MailChimp was actually birthed out of an agency. And I think MailChimp, the past few years was acquired for $12 billion. I mean, that's obviously a unicorn situation, but it came out of how they were serving clients and serving their own needs and their clients' needs. So it's always interesting. Agencies are kind of see a unique viewpoint because they see it across, a bunch of companies. What were some of the challenges and pitfalls you had when you were creating this yourself?
Okay, hold on. I'm taking notes now. $12 billion. Okay, never mind.
You're like,
we are external facing now.
Exactly.
It is that. Like that was, there's been several challenges. One is the funding of it was everything's been bootstrapped. And I've looked at taking money in the past. And I at the time, I didn't exactly know what I would do with it. Now I know exactly what I would have done with it. And it would have been get amazing people and start building product earlier. So like a lot of the challenges too were just internal and an identity crisis of, as we're building it, our leadership and team internally is like, okay, this is a SaaS. Let's build it as a SaaS. Let's market it. Our sales team's going to put this forward. This is the first thing that makes us different. This is what makes us special, is the software. And I'm like, yes, it's what we do with the software, though. It's what we're doing. It's what enables our team, our graphic designers, our performance managers, our dealer consultants to be really good and really fast. And then, valuations on SaaS companies and, the ability for us to sell into larger entities and larger dealer groups and publicly traded dealer groups and aftermarket places. And, you know, it's like, it did create a bit of a riff internally for us to really land on our feet with what we're doing with it. And a lot of it just stems on my background as not a SaaS person. I want to deliver. Like, I want our team to be able to deliver. And with the customer base that we have, they're not a customer that's going to be able to take a bunch of this information and do something with it. We can, like, we are built to do it in an industry where I think a lot of companies are built the opposite way, where we're a data mining platform or a consumer data platform, a CDP, or, you know, we do this component that's creating a lot of information for targeting or for creative, and then the customer doesn't know what to do with it and either cancels or just doesn't use it. And then they become an ad agency accidentally. Like, there's a lot of people out there that own an ad agency begrudgingly, and they didn't mean it to be an ad agency. They meant to be a software or a data mining platform. Where we're still an ad agency at the core. We're a Facebook, Instagram specific ad agency that's testing out Pinterest and Amazon Display Network. But our core, we are an ad agency. We are a designer. We make things bespoke, custom, that stand out from other dealerships in the market. And we just now happen to have a software component that helps to fuel a lot of our decisions and a lot of our measurement and a lot of our targeting capabilities.
And I want to talk about hiring and culture, right? Internal hiring. Also, you help. One of the things you do for dealerships is you help recruiting and hiring too, right?
Right.
So what are some of the things that have worked for you from a hiring perspective with your agency?
There's been a few ways. I mean, obviously, we've done, you know, the marketplaces for recruiting people, for getting applications. And I think it's really grown over the years from, we're like, I don't know if this analogy still is obvious, but we used to be like the Jon Stewart for people's careers, where you get out of college and you work for us and we're going to train you so hard and get you really refined into a machine that understands this platform, understands how to have the conversations. And then you're worth more money to somebody else because we couldn't pay you that much. And then you double your salary and go somewhere else. And we did that for 4 years, until we got into a profitability position to be able to pay people with chops and to retain them and to invest in them and to come up with benefits around it that include education bonuses for them to go learn anything, ceramics, or, you know, really drill down on their specific niche. And invest in people when we're going to industry conferences to bring people from our team there, to expose them to, you know, the conversations that are happening, the other providers, at the risk of people getting poached. And we've had people poached from these events, and it's just the price that I'm going to pay for keeping that culture and that value alive, is people are going to get poached and it's going to suck. And I'll tell the other, you know, competitors that, like, look, this one's free. Next one will cost you. Like, you know, don't start gouging our staff. But the alternative is
they're going to wake up with a horse's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, something. Yeah. I'll leave the mystery open.
Exactly.
But I'll have to figure it out if they do it a second time. And yeah, I mean, the alternative of not investing in the staff, not bringing them, is, you know, keeping your best talent under lock and key, and they stop developing anyway, you know, and you don't get a chance to sit with them and hang out with them and get to really know them, because we're in a complete remote work environment. And yeah, and another thing with hiring too, it's like, we either need to fill a position and we need to start taking a lot of applications for it and vetting and getting referrals, or we have a position that would be nice to fill and we're going to serendipitously find that person. And it's not urgent. We've had a couple of people that have been great hires that it was just the timing was right with their career. And we've seen eye to eye with them over the years, and they work with other providers and competitors or clients of ours. And then they're available and we get in touch and it's like, okay, we don't have a specific role right now, but let's make one. Let's make one. Let's bring you on. Let's get started. Let's roll our sleeves up. It's not an unsurmountable risk for us to take. And let's make it make sense in the next 60 days. Like, let's just start working with this person.
When we look at retaining great staff, Andrew, you mentioned, education bonuses, stuff they like to do. Obviously, from a compensation perspective, just investing in education. What else has worked from a retention standpoint? I'm going to pull up here. You can check out dealeromg.com. And, one thing is just having a nice actual careers page with all the benefits on it. And you can kind of see on here what, if you're looking for, there's certain perks: education, 401k matching, health plans, profit sharing, PTO. Is there anything else that we're missing that I don't know, the intangibles that have helped?
I didn't know we had that on our website, but yes, I mean, that is big for us to be able to articulate while we're hiring. But then when we're onboarding a new employee, we typically fly them to Austin or Columbus, where we have a couple of headquarters, or we have our leadership team lives, and we get a conference room. But to sit down and really try to explain how we do what we do, what makes us special, where their role is, and what kind of like upward trajectory could look like within our organization, which is small. We float around 20 people. And to have, like, 5 years ago, if you asked me what culture was, I'm like, we've got a foosball table. We haven't put it together yet. We've got beer. We do, and there's a new employee, we go to lunch. There's like small things that really aren't culture, but it is what I thought it was. But now it's just really caring about people and knowing that their dog is sick, or that what their boyfriend's name is, or their husband's name is, or their wife's name is, and knowing people, and caring about people, and being able to help with finding opportunities for them. Hey, we have unlimited PTO, which is sometimes a little bit of a two-edged sword, where it's like, okay, you're never taking your PTO. It's been 9 months. Let's find an opportunity for you to, even if you don't have to go somewhere, but caring about people, paying them competitively, and then having to have a beacon internally. We have somebody named Jasmine that works with us, who's a loud introvert who loves to help organize the holiday PowerPoint presentation, slideshow, the games, the happy hours. And there's ways for like that she's unlocked. Have you ever seen Legally Blonde 2?
I don't know. Actually, I've seen Legally Blonde. I can't remember. I've seen the second one.
It's the sequel. I haven't seen either.
Okay.
Disclaimer. Not yet. I should probably see it. But there's a thing called Snap Cup in Legally Blonde 2, where I guess they're arguing at some law firm or at some office environment. And they sing a song about Snap Cup, and everybody sends a snap out to somebody. And then we tie it in with our core values. So when somebody does something that's above and beyond, or somebody just needs recognition, there's a Google form that they can fill out, and in a drop down, pick somebody with their nickname next to it on what they did. And so during happy hour, we'll go around, we'll start out by singing the Snap Cup song from Legally Blonde 2. And then like somebody will kick it off on something great that somebody did, that somebody came in while they were out, they covered, there was no errors, or that BDRs that do outbound calls, they got their first appointment and their first deal, and they get a shout out. And it's a cool opportunity for people that are in every single department of the company to be able to see what people are doing, and an opportunity for people that are really delivering to get recognized and to have that be seen in front of all the leadership team. And like little things like that, having happy hours that aren't just sitting on a Zoom and drinking, but having some games to it, have been fun, as fun as it can be to be completely separated by time zones and state lines.
You mentioned, Andrew, upward trajectory. I love to hear a little bit about that. I know this comes up a lot in agency conversations about how do I create this upward trajectory? And, compared to if there's a large corporation where they have junior account manager, middle account manager, senior account manager, there's a lot of different layers there that leave room for upward trajectory. How do you tackle that in your organization?
I think a lot of the staff most of our staff, with very few exceptions, that have been really successful. What the recipe is for them to come in and be what is called a performance manager, just doing ad operations and understanding the philosophy and the intricacies of what we do, of where the rubber hits the road. And it is the most vital role that we have. And then just based on people's, skill sets and desires, there's other roles, from that being more client-facing, sales-facing, that they can evolve, that people have evolved into. And it's just based on, them getting a good grasp of what we do, being able to articulate it, and then just being able to work with car dealerships, which isn't, an instinctual thing that a lot of younger advertisers really want to do. But it's, one way to grow. And then we have people that have moved into our internal marketing team. We've got people who showed a propensity for like being very technical and become the technical lead to help customize pixels and all the super detailed digital marketing stuff. And it's to recognize that and do it pretty quickly, to hire fast and promote faster and fire fast, but keep make things move quickly. The rule of hiring slow is not necessarily true, I think, in our case. When we're growing, we need to fill some roles, and we need to push some people up that have mastered what they're doing.
Andrew, I have one last question. But before I ask it, I want to point people to check out your website, Dealer OMG, and .com, to learn more about what you do. I love some of the in the trenches stories you shared throughout the conversation. So thank you. My last question is some of your favorite resources. Resources could be a book. It could be a podcast. Also groups that you love. I love, if there's any takeaways from, EO, you're an EO. So what are some books, podcasts, maybe some items, things you learned in certain groups?
Man, a lot, dude. Like right now, like EO or EOS, like the like the entrepreneur's operating system with traction was pretty pivotal for us to be able to move to a remote environment. it came up at the same time for us to be able to have like the level 10 meetings and rate them and who attends them and the accountability chart was big. And for us to use an EOS implementer was really helpful. It was a great investment. Crucial conversations. I mean, there's been a lot of books that have been really helpful for kind of exploring weak areas that I feel like I needed to improve on. But right now, like what's been like the most beneficial are stories of other entrepreneurs. Like the Steve Jobs, I just like the last two books I've read were the Steve Jobs biography and the Phil Knight's Shoe Dog, his autobiography. They're both great. These are both like huge titans that just continually get gutted along the way and are walking through fire. And it's just it's comforting. I find them strangely comforting to read or to listen to. And podcasts like this, like yours, and like the pursuit that you're doing with the agencies, it's great because it's all so different and so similar and so relatable at the same time. EO has been instrumental, Entrepreneurs Organization, just to have some educational things to attend, but just to have the format of communicating with people and a network of folks who are kind of going through the same highs and the same lows, and finding resource there to be helpful to the other people that are in EO and have them be helpful back. EO has been great. I've been in Agency Management Institute with Drew McClellan. It was very helpful to like look under the hood and look in the books of other agencies and be able to, get some input as well as, get their input with our positioning and things that we're going through and our aspirations and our hires and things like that. So like at the, 30 minutes ago, we were talking about just being resourceful and finding consultants at the right things, but it's also finding the right, I've been fortunate finding the right books. I mean, the world of podcasts that are coming out at infinite warp speed of new podcasts, and they're great. They're well thought out and getting the right types of guests that aren't going to resonate with everybody, but it's going to resonate with a population of people. And if you're talking to agency owners and their story, hell, that's me.
Andrew, I want to echo that. I love traction, crucial conversations. Shoe Dog, I agree. When people ask me about Shoe Dog, I definitely say it's kind of like entrepreneurial therapy to see a big icon, a big company go through the same, like you put it well, the fires that everyone else does.
Well, I took that from your intro song.
Yeah.
I think it sings about going through the fire and being better on the other side, right?
Exactly. But so thanks for sharing. Everyone check out dealeromg.com and more episodes of the podcast. And Andrew, I want to be the first one to thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like 100 grand.